Welcome to this module on mobile storytelling, and this time we're looking at the tools involved in mobile storytelling. As you can imagine, a lot of it's going to focus on this little thing right here.
All right, so let's break down those mobile tools and some of the apps that you might be using for this class. Like I said, we're going to focus on the iPhone, but I want to show you a couple of other things that might help you along the way in terms of being better photographers, being better videographers when you're out on the go. One myth that I want to kind of debunk right here off the bat is that you have to spend a ton of money to be a mobile journalist. Yes, in some situations this is true, and some of the people who do this professionally or for a living do end up investing quite a bit in equipment, because in the end you will eventually be about as good as your equipment will take you. So there are those limitations. But for what we're doing right now in this case, or to just get started, a lot of mobile journalists will even tell you you do not have to break the bank to get started. One of the videos we'll watch following this lecture will be from Tim Pool when I talk to him about how he got started. So I really want you to pay attention to the money he spent, because it was not a lot to get started in this mobile journalism realm. Now, despite all of these things, yes, you can spend a lot of money here. And when you start talking about, hey, I want to have a drone too, and I want this and I want that, well then yes, of course, that could potentially lead to, you expecting to spend a lot of money. But again, it doesn't have to be that way. And so what we're going to focus on for this particular module, and this talk, again, we're just getting started here. So we really are going to start with the basics. And most of the stuff that I'm going to talk about is regarding the iPhone 6 or the 6 Plus, generally regarded in just about every review that you read as the best smartphone ever created. I am biased because I'm an Apple fanboy, so I admit that right off the bat. But there is a noticeable camera difference, and there are a majority of apps that are made specifically for the iPhone. So again, when it comes to being a mobile journalist, really the smartphone is your biggest tool by far. And it doesn't have to be an iPhone 6. It can be a low-level Android phone. If that's all that you have the resources to, by all means, knock yourself out. This does not mean you have to go out and spend hundreds of dollars on an iPhone 6. Know that there are price ranges for every budget. Again, to point back to that Tim Pool video that we'll watch here in a little bit, he even references you can get an Android phone for $1 that has a camera on it. So again, the best camera is the one that you have with you. And so don't take this as me saying you have to have an iPhone 6 to do mobile journalism. By all means, that is absolutely not true. But again, showing you some of these examples, what we're going to be pulling from is from the iPhone 6. So once you have your phone, again, it doesn't really matter what type of phone you have, but you do probably need at least some accessories. One thing is a directional mic. You might call this a shotgun mic or a boom mic. And they make these now that you can plug directly into your phone and it will record the audio. So what these are helpful for is if you're in a really loud situation and you really want to hone in on one thing, this would be the way to go with that. I put $40 as the price there. You can get these for much cheaper than that. This is kind of for a high-end shotgun mic. We will have a couple of these when we go out to the park. So we will allow you to kind of see the difference in audio quality from that. So that's about $40. Again, you can get one for much cheaper, but just, let's think $25 to $40 range. This is probably one of the best investments you can make, and it's an actual lavalier mic for your iPhone. So the one I have pictured here is about $30. Again, there are much cheaper versions. We might be purchasing a few that are about $15 total. You're probably going to get what you pay for in terms of quality, so just know that going in. We have one lavalier mic set for the iPhone that costs about $100, and the audio quality is probably going to be much greater than the ones that are $15. But again, these plug either directly into the phone like you see here, and then you would have an extra long cable that you could hand to the person who's talking, which they could then latch onto their shirt or sweater or whatever it is they're wearing. Or it comes with a standard lavalier kit, meaning a receiver and the transmitter, and that person would hold the microphone end and you would plug the other end into your phone. So they come either way. And again, price range here, $15 to $100, so somewhere around there. If you're just starting out, you probably want to go on that low end. So $30 is a high expectation on that. They also make lights for your iPhone. So here's an example of a small LED light kit that plugs directly into your phone for stabilization. Again, $25 is kind of on the high end for this. You might see a theme appearing here. These tools are not super expensive. We will have some of these for you to use out on the in the park. So as you imagine, as the sun starts going down, you might need some lighting in order to continue to shoot. Then after the lavalier mic, actually this is probably the most important tool that you can get. And it's just a simple tripod. So you might think of a tripod as this big lumbering thing that you have to carry around with you and put a really expensive camera on. Turns out they make tripods specifically for your phone. Here's an example of one that only costs $9. I got it at Target the other day. They make some with bendy legs, so you can either wrap it around something or bend to get the perfect angle, and it still holds in place. And then there are bigger tripods that are not expensive, but they're the lower end of the full-size tripods where you can actually screw on the adapter to hold your phone. So we'll have examples of all of those when we go out to the park. And then as you're using your phone, you have to remember that your battery is going to die very quickly. So just think of how quickly your battery dies just in your everyday life. And now imagine that you're doing nothing but shooting pictures and recording video and going back and forth and doing all these things, possibly editing on your phone, using social, connecting to Wi-Fi in spots or connecting to cell service that the phone might be straining to find. So having a battery charger, a mobile battery charger, is a great idea. I recommend Jockery, but there are all kinds of these on the market. This one in particular is only about $12. So, you can go up to whatever price you want to pay here. But again, they're not expensive. You plug your phone into them and you can charge on the go. It's just a good thing to have in general, but especially when you're out on a mobile journalism shoot. So if you combine all those up, especially now consider, again, I had some really high estimates on some of those things. It's only $115. So again, we're not talking about breaking the bank here. And again, that number could probably be closer to $75 or $80 based on, some of the prices can go down on that. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking, man, there's no way I can afford all these tools. We're starting small. Let's focus on truly what you really need to do this. And again, it's not a ton of money. The good news for you is we're going to have most of these accessories out on site, so you're not going to have to worry about them. I'm not telling you to go out and buy all these things right now. If you did want to get something before our park trip, having one of those mobile chargers would be great because you'll use that all the time. But in terms of the rest of that stuff, we'll have that in terms of school equipment out on scene. Now, again, you can go out and get a drone. That's talking big money. You can go out and get a GoPro, which we'll have some of those on scene too. That's, talking hundreds of dollars. You don't have to do that. You don't have to have either one of those to be a mobile journalist. You can be a mobile journalist, again, just straight up with your phone and a Wi-Fi or cell connection. GoPros are especially valuable now, though, especially since this last week's news that Periscope is now integrated with the new GoPros, the Hero 4s. Basically what that means is you can go live from your GoPro to Twitter, essentially, because Periscope is already connected to Twitter. So what a lot of people are excited to try is going live broadcast from their drone with the GoPro attached to the drone, now straight live to Twitter, or just going straight from your GoPro to Twitter. So exciting times ahead, but again, you don't need this stuff to be a mobile journalist. Here's another high-end tool that is really awesome. I don't have one of these, and I really want one. So it's about $350, and there are more expensive ones than this. But what this is essentially it's a rig. It's a stabilizing rig. And I'm going to show you a short video so you can see it in action to see really the remarkable thing this thing does. And this isn't the only one. This is just one that I saw actually at South by Southwest last year. Saw it in the trade show, was blown away, and I've wanted one ever since. So here's what it looks like in action. So if you've ever tried to shoot video on your phone and it looks like an earthquake was going on behind you, you can feel my pain because I shoot the same way. So a stabilizing rig like that could be a huge addition to your cache of tools, but not required by any means. It's just one of those luxuries that you might one day be able to afford. So like I mentioned earlier, we're going to focus on the iPhone and Apple. Again, I'm an Apple fanboy. Sue me. I know. I realize some of y'all have Android phones. That's completely fine as long as it has a good camera on it. So I would highly advise you to test beforehand and know and be honest. Does my phone have a good enough camera to do this? If not, we'll have some other options for you there on scene at the park. So don't stress if you don't have the world's greatest phone. It's not a big deal. We got you covered. So let's start first with a talk about the just standard phone app inside the iPhone 6 or the iPhone 6 Plus. There are a lot of new features, including exposure control, also slow motion, and so we're going to walk you through those. Unfortunately, I had sweet Lucy girl here to be my model, so again, apologize for the shaky camera work here, but when you touch the screen, that's your focus. But if you hold your thumb down, it'll lock the focus on that spot, and you can see I'm dragging that exposure up or down to either brighten the shot or make the shot a little darker. So I just took a picture there. Now the flash finally kicked in because I had changed the exposure. HDR takes a series of pictures and uses the best one out of it. And then I turn the live photo on there. So what that does is it essentially creates an animated GIF based on the one picture that you just took. So that's kind of a cool new option. You can again go into square mode. I don't know why I'm saying again so many times. Pano mode. Video, which is a little dark. And of course for this we would want to shoot horizontally and not vertically. But you can still lock the focus and adjust the exposure there. So same thing on video mode. Slow-mo is a really cool option that just got really dark. And time-lapse, we're going to see some examples of those here in just a second. But when it comes down to it, the iPhone 6 takes some really great photos. It helps when you have a really cute dog who's willing to just sit there and be your model for quite a while, even if she doesn't like the flash on the camera. So here's a look at this from a New York Times Pulitzer Award-winning photographer, and here's what he has to say about the features on the new camera.
So when they asked me to check out the new iPhone 6 camera, I did as little research as possible on it because I wanted to see how it worked right out of the box. I also wanted to get a sense for how intuitive some of the new functions are. They've made several predictable changes. Better autofocus, bigger screen, and the image quality continues to improve. But there are a couple of key elements that I think really stand out. The iPhone 6 Plus goes a step further and adds optical image stabilization. But I was happy enough with the 6 and found the size easier to use. One of the most talked about additions is the slow motion video. This makes you look at things in a totally different way. Time-lapse is also another added feature, but quite frankly, it's going to be a lot more work for the average person. You need a steady hand and a lot of patience to really make it sing. The slow motion makes almost anything look interesting. It has a beautiful, sentimental quality to it. I was really surprised how it handled the light and how smooth it looks. I just want to shoot a picture over here. One of the biggest limits in most smartphone cameras is the lack of exposure control. But this is one of the few key features that is dramatically improved with iOS 8. How you use light is the key to making great photos. Previous iPhone cameras had an exposure lock, but it was limiting. The new camera has a little slider that allows you to really fine-tune the exposure. It also works while you're rolling video. Give me the finger. In addition, there are many more tools available to process and tone the images for the look I want. It now enables you to fine-tune the image using light, exposure, contrast, and color. With all these features built in, I don't have to use a third-party app. Like that. The camera on the new iPhone 6 is getting closer to something I would rely on more often, but it still has its limitations. It's frozen. One thing I've learned as a professional, though, is that every camera has limitations. The trick is how you learn to deal with them.
So he talks a little bit about editing your photos. We'll discuss that in a future module. But you can see some really cool features on the phone, specifically just on the stock camera app that you don't have to pay anything extra for. So that's why I tend to refer people to try the stock app first because it's free rather than going out and paying for one of these third-party apps when you might be able to get what you need out of just the stock app. If you are going to go for a third-party app or downloading one from the App Store, Camera Plus has really good reviews. I've used it for a while. I kind of stopped using it because I like the stock camera app so much. Costs about $2.99 in the App Store. Fairly simple to learn. You have manual controls over a lot of things. So if you really get into this, you would probably want to upgrade to Camera Plus. But for the rest of us, the stock camera app is just about fine. In terms of video, though, there are some apps, including one called Filmic, which we're going to see a quick little video from here, that a lot of the pros recommend because you want to get the specific shot perfect when it comes to video. On photo, you can take a million shots and you pick one, but in video, we're kind of shooting in the element there. And so we need some help. So here's a very brief look at the kind of things that Filmic can do for your shots.
Hi, my name is Susan Roderick, and this is just the 1-2 punch tutorial on how to focus. That was a 1-2 punch tutorial on how to focus, expose, and shoot with Filmic Pro. So when you open up the icon, the Filmic Pro app will open up. Right. And on the bottom of the screen, I'm just going to talk you through what all those little icons mean. So the first one that looks like a little flower, that's white balance. The second one will be a square, and that is focus. The third one will be a round circle, and that will be exposure. And then you'll also see a little play button, and that is how you access the clips that you have taken. There will also be a round settings button that takes you into the Filmic Pro settings menu. And then there'll be a white circle with a red center, and that is the record buttons. So what you need to do to start rocking and rolling with Filmic Pro is you need to go along the bottom and lock the white balance. You will see a focus reticle. It's a square. You can move that around the screen to where you want to focus. Once you pick select the area you want to focus, lock it. Lock the focus. Also, wherever you want to expose, if you move the round exposure reticle around the screen, you'll see that when you move it into the light areas, it will darken the exposure. When you move it into the dark areas, it will lighten the exposure. So pick the exposure you want and then lock it. Lock it by tapping the button on the bottom left-hand side. That is how you focus and expose. And then you want to click the white circle with the round button, the record button. Click that, and you are rocking and rolling. It will turn solid red. Then you know you're recording. There's also a timer in the middle, and that will start clicking away. You'll start seeing the timer go. That means you're recording. So I will say, this tutorial is for beginners. If you are an advanced user, you can manually expose, you can manually focus, and you can manually white balance. And you do that by clicking those 3 buttons along the lower left-hand side and holding them down for 2 seconds. And that will bring you into the manual controls. If that happens and you're a beginner, then you've held the button down too long. We'll get into another tutorial on how to manually expose, how to manually white balance, and how to manually focus, but this isn't the one. So my name's Susan Roderick with Filmic Pro, and we'll be back with more tutorials soon. Thanks for watching.
So that's a very brief look at some of the things that Filmic can do for you. And like you saw, if you're a beginner, that's really easy to use. I think Filmic costs a couple bucks in the App Store, but it's something you might want to check out. I'm going to try to start shooting more with Filmic here in the coming days, weeks, months. And then the more used to it you get, then you can look up Filmic on YouTube and watch all the other tutorials and get more versed in how to use it. The last app I want to talk to you about is just our simple voice memos app, because this is the quickest way to record audio. If you're just doing an audio interview with someone, not necessarily video, it is really easy. I'm sure most of you have used this before, maybe to record lectures in class, but all you do is hit the record button. The cool thing about it, though, is you do have now some editing options in terms of editing those audio clips down. So if you get to a situation where you want a track or a narration of some point in your movie, you can do the audio right here, cut the track down, pop it into iMovie or some other movie editing software, and you'll have that right there on your phone.
So that's it. Let's go ahead and head to the forum, make your forum post for this module. Also, don't forget to take this module's quiz. We'll see you at the next module.